What's up? What's up? I think we are live. Wait for people to come in. Let me check YouTube. Let's see. Couple of people coming in. Hey, give me a thumbs up or just say something in the comments if you can hear my voice. I'm trying a new microphone. See if you can hear things I'm saying. Just say, let me know in the comments. What's up, Juan? How's everything? Everything's good. We got to get on a live call one day, you and me, over a Zoom call. Just chat it up. Awesome. Appreciate that. Appreciate the feedback, Julian. Appreciate that. You guys can hear, which is all good. All is good. All is good. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was just jumping on live. Definitely. One of these days, Juan, you hit me up in one of my things, and we'll definitely get on. But I was just jumping on live I tell myself every Tuesday I'm going to jump on lives. What's up, Mike? The Lakers are playing. I know Lakers are playing, but I don't know. Sports to me right now, I don't know. I'll be back probably next year. One of the things I was going to do is I was just jumping on live at 6 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. I know it's 9 o'clock on the East Coast, but I thought I'm going to jump on every Tuesday. I don't really have an agenda today other than a couple of things, and then I would love to just answer some questions and anything you guys have for me, ask me some questions and we can talk. One of the things, I'll be back. I think next year next year when in terms of sports, when it comes to sports, for me, the bubble, no fans, it's kind of like I have my own things about that. I want to, when sports gets back to what I know of sports, then I'll probably be back at, full blown into it. It's a lot of variables at play. You can't really, yeah. You can't really, exactly. You can't really, there's a lot of variables at play. Sports is not going to be even kill. No fans. It's like, especially the NBA in the bubble. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but one of the things, couple of things that was on my mind today was this. This is something that I was thinking about today. I was listening to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People audiobook I downloaded today. I actually just downloaded the the quick version of this. Somebody was reading this, and number 2, the second point in this in the habits was start with the end goal. And this was interesting to me because I love this principle. I actually used it in a video once, like years ago, when I said designers should start with the end goal in mind, meaning like if you pick the title, if you envision yourself as a particular title, then you can work your way through the process in terms of getting there. But I also thought about it as just like in a daily being productive throughout the day. So I thought of it like a lot of times when we go through our days, we jump on Twitter, we jump on YouTube, we jump on LinkedIn, and we're absorbing content, we're responding to content, things like that, but we're not really purposeful in terms of what we want the end of the day to look like. And I think it's important for all of us to take this principle and go, I'm sure each and every one of us could get better at being clear on what we want that end of the day to look like. And so it could be a lot of things for everybody. It could be different things like, hey, at the end of this day, I want to have worked on this. At the end of this day, I want to had worked on this project that that I have in mind. At the end of the day, I need to work on my portfolio. At the end of the day, I need to respond or apply to 5 jobs. At the end of the day, I want to feel good about myself by doing these particular things. And I think if you envision yourself at the end of the day and exactly how you want to feel in terms of things that you've accomplished that day, you're basically going to start being conscious of the tasks that you need to do throughout that day to reach those particular goals. So I like that principle. When I read it this morning, I was like, okay, I like that. So it's a matter of basically getting clear on taking 5 minutes throughout, either at night or in the beginning of in the morning, and just kind of envisioning that the end of the day, how you want to feel. Excuse me, like what you want, like how you want to feel, what you want to get out of that particular day, and then you're going to take action towards that. The opposite is the reactive side. Is like when we start our day, we're just kind of going about things. We're either like those of us who are going to work, or you're just taking in things randomly. So the day goes by, the week goes by, and you look back and you go, did I actually work on anything that I really wanted to work on? Any one of my projects, anything that I set forth on, I wanted to build. Like for me, I have a bunch of landing pages that I need to build for my MLUX Academy site. I need to restructure the membership site, all these different things. And I'm like, I can get bogged down with posting content to social media and then just forgetting about my big pillars, my big rocks. Posting content, doing content, things like that are small things, and that's beneficial to our brands and things like that. But it's like, don't forget about that book that you're trying to write. Don't forget about that project that you're trying to get done. Don't forget that big pillar that's going to move the needle. Those are some things that I think is important. Take some of these questions. I see some questions coming in. So there's a 6-month UX design certification program at Cornell for $2,500. Would you recommend it? That doesn't seem expensive in terms of a 6-month UX design certification program, but obviously it sounds interesting because it's at Cornell, and there might be something there. You would get bonus points just for, I guess, going through the course and having that on your resume at some point. I don't know without actually knowing the curriculum, knowing who's teaching it, and knowing exactly what you're going to get out of it. But a 6-month UX design certification program for $2,500 doesn't seem like a lot. So I don't think there's a risk of you taking a course or a program at a college, a UX design course or program that's $2,500. But if you're going, if it's you're going to go through a program, you're going to be taught. It seems reasonable to me. I mean, but it's up to you. You're still, the truth is, if you take a program, if you commit to it, then you do the things that's a part of it. It's up to you. But I feel at the end of 6 months, you're still going to be in a situation where you're still obviously going to be learning, still have to be growing. So I can't say If you're, I can't give you a, you know, like a straight up yes, it should be, you know, something you should look into. My wife was calling me. I had to mute and tell her I was on live. Um, Julian says, "Hey Mike, I'm an aspiring UX designer in Santa Clarita. Oh, you're in my area, and I remember you mentioning a mentoring program. I wonder if you're still offering that. Yes. Um, if you are interested, Julian, go to my site, MLUX Academy. Um, I'm going to be posting up I'm going to have a page soon where I'm going to be offering one-on-one, like formally one-on-one coaching, mentoring. But if you're interested in that, shoot me an email. Go to my site, mluxacademy.com. Click on the contact link and just shoot me a message. Use that contact page. Just shoot me a message and let me know that you're interested. I'll email you back, and then we can set up, you know, a schedule. You know, we can work out a schedule to get us on a one-on-one call if that's something that you're interested in. Also, if you're interested in something more than that, we can touch base and talk about that too. But for now, I am taking one-on-one coaching and offering one-on-one mentoring for anybody that's interested. So go to my site, MLX Academy, click on the contact link there, contact us at the top, and shoot me a message, and then I'll get back to you. But you seem to be in my area, so my time zone, which is cool. What program should I start getting into if I'm looking into UI UX design? Um, Programs. The main thing for anybody, I'm looking at the microphone. The main thing for anybody getting in UI UX design is just pick up either one of the three: Sketch, Figma, or Adobe Xd. That's basically your tool that you're going to have to be using to do the design work. That's the first thing that you need to do. I use Sketch today a lot, and also I'm going to be starting to use Figma more. A lot of people use Figma because it's also available for PC and Mac. I use Sketch. I've been using Sketch for the last, I don't know how long, 5+ years. So Adobe XD is also a new one. I don't use Adobe XD. I don't use Adobe products that much, but a lot of people, it seems to be like when I did a random survey out there, everybody's using Adobe XD in terms of like individuals. You don't see Adobe XD in corporations that much, but Adobe XD in terms of individuals, people are using that a lot. So start with one of those tools and start designing interfaces. That's the first step into becoming a UI UX designer. So the question is, which program? Find one of the tools. Learn Figma. I would say go out there and learn Figma if you are on a PC, and start there and start practicing designing interfaces. That's the first step, in my opinion, of someone becoming a UI UX designer. Why do I have an egghead? As long as you have a guaranteed winner portfolio. She said, Nurse says, I have a question. Ask me a question. Yes, there's still Q&A. It's 42.0 to get into. Is 42.0 to get into UI UX? No, I'm 45. I'm not too old. You can be 50, 60, 70 and still get in. So if you have a question about age when it comes to doing UI UX, basically it's all about staying true to the trends. If you stay true in terms of, regardless of your age, when you get older, like myself, you become stubborn per se, because we've been through it all. We've been through a bunch of jobs. We've been through a bunch of years working at a particular place. We want a particular thing. We might be stubborn the way we do things. If you eliminate that, the stubbornness, um, and and stay with the trends. It doesn't matter really what age you are. Age could be a factor when it comes to your salary. So keep that in mind. If at 40 you're probably had a lot of experience in working in different places, you're probably at a certain salary point. So when you go out there and you look for jobs, getting a salary, or you pushing your salary out there could be a benefactor, a factor in terms of you getting passed up for someone who might be younger and might take a lower salary, right? So if you keep that in mind, that's pretty much my advice to that. Gary says Figma for sure. Figma is the thing. I actually was working with this company, and we were using Sketch, and then they switched to Figma for no apparent reason. Just a lot of other designers liked Figma, and so they switched to Figma, and that was that. Every company that I've been with, I haven't worked at a company that actually used Adobe Xd. That's an interesting one. But I did a survey where I put a survey out on Twitter, and I asked, what's the number one tool that you use right now, right? Sketch/InVision, which is what I use, which is what most people use over the last several years in different corporations. I put Figma on the list, Adobe Xd, and I put other. Adobe Xd was the number one. Figma was, I think, other was number 2. Figma was 3. Sketch and InVision was last, actually. And there's a lot of noise in surveys like that, but it was like about 2,000 people. So that was pretty interesting. But there's a lot of noise in surveys like that, meaning there's a lot of individuals that already have the Adobe Creative Cloud. And so they're already using Photoshop or Illustrator, and so they just naturally gravitate towards Adobe XD because it's free. Why pay for more if I'm already paying for the subscription? And so I think that's my take on that, why Adobe XD was such a wide margin in terms of people using Adobe XD. But I've never seen people use Adobe XD in a corporate environment where there's a large licensing group. I am a comp sci. Okay, I'm a comp sci, computer sci major, trying to get into UI UX intern this summer. What are the most important things I should focus on in my portfolio? Good question. You're a computer sci major, trying to get a UX design intern in the summer. What are the most important things? The most important things that you should focus on if you're trying to get an intern this summer is to at least design one project. I don't know the extent of your design skills, but if you're trying to get an intern, I would at least try to design one project, a couple of screens, and document your process. Like document, your thought process in coming up with the idea, which problem you're trying to solve, the solution you came up with, and the process that you went through in order to kind of come up with the screens. Maybe show some examples of you going out there browsing different competitors and things like that. Document that, maybe do some wireframes. That always looks good. Do some sketches and design a couple of screens. But just document this one project. I think for someone getting an intern, having at least one project is really cool. And I think that should be enough for you to at least get seen as like, hey, I like this person. This person tried, created one project, outlined their process and things like that. I would definitely interview somebody for an internship, and if they documented and showed one project that they're trying to, that they tried to complete. So I think that's the best thing that you should do. And if you have more than one project, obviously you're good. You're going out there for an internship. An internship is for you to, be there. I don't know how long internships nowadays are pretty competitive. I was at a company where the internships were pretty competitive. These folks were brought in and they were actually doing some work, but it was from a development side. So I would just focus on, like I said, focus on projects. If you can do one or two projects. You said internships this summer. You're looking for something this summer. Work on one project. That's my opinion. Terrence said, Tehran said, first time dropping in. Appreciate that. Chris said, "Hey Mike, just want to say thanks. I've learned so much from you and really appreciate you sharing share the wealth. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Chris. Never gets old. Anybody give me a shout out and learn anything from one of my videos, a nugget or two. That's what YouTube is about. So I appreciate you shooting me that message, and I'm glad you resonate with some of the videos and some of the things and the content that I put out." Ella says, "Hey Mike, I've been watching your videos for a class, okay, that I'm taking on human-computer interaction, okay, and I have completely fallen in love with UI UX. Is it ever too late to get into this field?" No, it's never too late to get into the field. You seem to be on the side of in my opinion, if you're taking a class on human computer interaction, that's on the side of UX research, and I think that's another huge discipline and things to get into. I'm more on I'm on the product design side. There's two roles when it comes to this industry. There's a UX researcher that does a lot of the work, a lot of the, I guess you could say a lot of the data and the research and the analytics and, a lot of that part, a lot of analyzing the market, understanding users, understanding, where people are going, where people are moving to, and what products should be built based on those particular things. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens on the UX research side. I focus heavily more on the product design side. That's been my career for the last 20 plus years. And those are the two roles. A lot of people get it confused and because there's a lot of titles that are out there. There's like probably 10 titles that describes many of these two positions, but there's really just only two. There's the UX researcher, and then there's the product designer. And the product designer and the UX researcher a lot of times work together. Yeah, that's my thought process on that. And that's the truth. But there's never too late to get into. I think it's much easier as we get older. I think it's easier to be more on the UX research side. And the reason why I say that is because the research side, there's a lot of wisdom that you can leverage as we grow in our careers, as we get older in our careers. You can leverage your wisdom and apply that to the UX research side, the human interaction side, the common sense side. Much easier than someone getting into the field very late and thinking and having to design, like literally design products, like in the latest cutting edge, visual UI design. That's hard because you really have to, it's unnatural probably for a lot of folks who are getting in late to having to design, like they see these cutting trends that we see on Dribble and things like that. Whereas the UX, the human computer interaction side is a little bit easier, I think, in my opinion. Figma does have a free plan, and I think, yeah, the crazy thing is Figma is free. I don't really know their model. I've never paid for Figma as far as I can tell, but I have Figma, and I don't know why it's free and what their model is. I don't know. Let me see. Nurse says, most companies say they want a UX designer, but after working, you realize that they don't even practice the basic of UX design process. Absolutely. And that's a very, you've actually mentioned that's a good point. And so now I still haven't had good mentor and companies that help me sharpen my UX design skills. Would you? I've actually talked about this. This is a great question you bring up, and this is the honest truth. Um, and I brought this up in a video once where the things that we see when it comes to UX design, the things that we see on YouTube, the things that we see, I call it textbook. So when you see and hear normal professionals talking about UX design, they pretty much go through the textbook of what UX design is. And this is great, and everybody falls in love with it, and everybody likes the process and likes you know, the challenges of doing UX, and working through a problem, really understanding user pain points and things like that. The problem is when you get into the workforce, like in real life, let's just say outside of textbook theory, in real life, companies are ran on their product development, basically. That's their life cycle, their product development. And a lot of companies kind of brush away UX design and say, hey, we need to get these products out. So a lot of times you're doing just day to day, like, you're just mocking up stuff and you're pushing stuff out based on the product owner's needs or the product development's needs. And that's what the organization, the company of these organizations, I mean, the executives of these organizations, they just care about product development, getting stuff out. They don't care about if you wanted to take 6 weeks or 2 months to really do some quote unquote some real research. They don't care about that. They care about getting stuff out, getting stuff out, getting stuff out, getting stuff out. That's essentially why I actually talk about product design as an essential. Like whereas UX research, you're only going to find true UX design at bigger companies. So, like my advice is, if you're discouraged by the fact that a lot of these companies are not doing real UX research, I learned this the hard way. I learned this a long time ago, and then I just accepted it. I'm like, everyone's talking about UX design, but these companies don't do real UX, and so I just took it at that. And that's why I actually got to the point to where I teach what's essential. What's essential to these companies is visual design, somebody who can problem solve, can critically think through these problems, because you still have to understand users' pain points and kind of solve their problems. But that just comes with the lack of a process. Like, you can just kind of think through things. You don't have to go through a quote unquote a UX design process to be able to do that. And so that's why I teach the 4 basic common sense, or I would say the 4 basic essential things of a product designer. So if you want to continue to be highly valuable and grow within this industry and always be in demand, visual design, problem solving, critical thinking, and communication, like communicating with your development group, product owners, those are the essential things that is applied to any designer at any company. So if you have those qualities, you have those skill sets, and you focus on those things, you will be essential at any job. Now, there's going to be some jobs where they do real, quote unquote, real UX, like real research, like where you're actually sitting down and you're listening to users and things like that, and you're seeing them work through their applications, and so you're taking notes and you're seeing their pain points and you're studying these things. That happens. That happened. I've worked at ADP where we did that a lot, but for the most part, the bread and butter was in designing our screens, in designing these new features in our screens, and working those through the development process. Long story short is, I think people that are coming into a realization that these companies aren't doing real UX work, I think that's just the reality of the business. And that's for another discussion. I don't think companies are going to, I think more companies are going to fall in line with my approach of thinking. Like whereas common UX design is more common sense and more just practical problem solving rather than a true UX process that every company is going to adhere to. I don't think that's going to be the case. Um, you're still going to have the dribbles. I mean, the Googles, the big, quote unquote, the big tech companies that have a large UX design organizations or teams within their thanks for the super chat, Franklin. Within their large teams or their organizations, you're still going to have more of a process there. But even if you went to a company like Google and you left Google and you went to another company, you're going to have the issue where you're going to be like, at Google, we did this, but at this company, we're not even doing real UX work. And so I don't think, I think that's a long discussion. I think it's interesting to hear and hear what other professionals think about the industry, whether or not companies are going to continue to go down this path. Are they still going to not do UX, quote unquote, the right way, or are they just going to kind of adjust the UX thinking into like some of the things that I think about, like how UX design is just common sense, you know? So, but it's an interesting thing, and I've talked about this before. I think, and so for those just coming in, I'm talking about this particular question. Most companies say they want a UX designer, but after working, you realize they don't practice any basic UX design process. The one thing that I've done when I realized this question or this particular issue is back in the day, I used to do my own UX process outside of work. And so I would still practice it, still teach it on YouTube, still talk through it. If I actually, back then, I was really interested in doing quote unquote real UX work. So I recommended in one of my videos that, hey, do the job for now. Obviously, if you're at a job where they're not doing UX and work, you're obviously not going to be there long. You don't really enjoy it because you want something different. So as you continue to look elsewhere for a new job that may do UX design, quote unquote, like the right way, take it upon yourself and, do the process through your personal projects. Just don't do the work at work, but don't let that die down. Still conduct the UX process through your own personal projects and let your portfolio be the, benefit from that. And then that's going to help you obviously land another job as you move towards getting a job that does more of the UX design process. Hey, Mike, I've been watching your videos day and night. I appreciate that. It really helped me in starting, again, UI, UX. You seem only guy to emphasize on visual aspect more completely. Makes sense. So to this point, the reason why I focus a lot on visuals, like this recruiter hit me up recently, said, Mike, I have a company, like right now, a lot of companies I've worked with this company for 6 months and I ended my contract with them. So my recruiter hit me up. It was like, Mike, I have a company, I have 6 positions and they just want people with strong visual UI design. And it was interesting that she sent me that because it's exactly what I preach. And the reason why I preach that is because I know, being in companies this long, the main thing that they want or the main thing that they need or something that really stands out, it's the hard skill of visual UI design. If we eliminate visual UI design, we become commodities. And what I mean by that, the only difference that separates a UX designer from someone else, if there is no visual design, is really just opinion, right? It's just opinion, because UX design is there's no right and wrong when it comes to UX design. How an app should be built or how to solve a user's problem, it could be solved in a lot of different ways. If a user, it's all common sense. So if you're You know, if you're looking at a customer's um, if you're watching a user navigate through an application and you're identifying some pain points that they're going through, like, oh man, it took them 5 clicks to get to this one particular action, and you thought to yourself, I'm going to solve that problem by bringing that action on the dashboard page, let's say, right? Um, you can do it that way. You can do it another way, right? You can put that action button beside, behind another hamburger menu or some sort of drop down menu that the user navigates to often, and then they can find it there easily. Long story short is there's a million ways to do it, right? There's hundreds of ways to solve a user's pain points. And knowing that if there's no right and wrong, and there's a lot of ways to solve a problem in a good way, we all become commodities at that point. Things are just common sense. Long story short, it's common sense or it's essential that you look on every app on your phone that needs a design. Like these apps, they need designers. I can teach you the basics of problem solving and things like that, but these apps, they need designers. And that's the most essential thing. So when my recruiter hit me up, it kind of validate what I was saying. And it's not that someone tells me this, it's what I see every single day. I work for these companies and I'm like, 90% of the time, I'm just doing visual design work or I'm just doing screens. I'm not talking to customers every single day. I'm working with product owners. I'm working with developers, and they're telling us about these features, and I'm putting these features in these screens in Sketch, and I'm adding them to these stories, and the developers are getting them done. They're coding them. There's no discussion with customers. There's no UX design process. It's a matter of communicating with product owners. Oh, our stakeholders are saying that we need to get this feature in. We add this in. If we have an opportunity, if it's a big project and there's a lot of moving parts to it, then we would vet these through users. But for the most part, it's just working through the stuff daily. 90% of the time throughout the day, it's hearing features, designing these things, running these by stakeholders, and getting them moved through the process. And those are low-hanging fruit issues. So when you're designing low-hanging fruit stuff that is common sense, is basic, that really doesn't need like users' feedback, then you can just run those through. But if you're building a new like calendar application, part of your screen, obviously you need to vet that through users and figure out what your problems you're solving for and things like that. But Bruno said, what if you mainly have restaurant experience on your resume? Does companies take that seriously? I was talking through somebody about that, and today about lack of experience. That's when it all comes down to our portfolio. That's why your portfolio has to speak for itself. So if you have, let's say you're getting into UX and you have limited experience working in an organization, or you worked at a restaurant, you've done bartending and things like that. If your portfolio is strong and you have a multitude of projects on your portfolio, that's obviously going to outweigh the lack of experience. Obviously, I'll look at your portfolio. Okay, this person is new to UX design, has worked at a few restaurants, but look at this portfolio. This portfolio is amazing. I want to at least have a chance to talk to you, and hear your thought process. So it all comes down to your portfolio. If somebody has little experience in working in UX, UI, and little experience on their portfolio, then obviously it looks like you have limited experience, right? Somebody can beat you out if they have more experience or a stronger portfolio. But a stronger portfolio is the X factor. That's the common denominator between I think, success and for designers. Always know that your portfolio, that the amount of effort you put into your portfolio, you're just planting seeds into a little, bank in terms of you eventually landing a job. So always be working on your portfolio. So you asked, hey Mike, I'm also worried that I've fallen in love with UX too late. I think you mentioned this earlier. I'm in the last year of university. I'm worried I've missed chances of gaining experience. No one would take a chance on me. No, it's just a matter of if like I said, your experience, how much you put in, your effort you put into your portfolio and where you want to go. I think earlier I read your question that I think you were leaning more towards human computer interaction. That's the UX research side. There's a lot of smart people on YouTube in the community that offers advice on the UX research side. I think it's just a matter of you going down that path and building your portfolio and building up your brand, talking through your process on how you think about UX. And I think that's important. Then obviously getting into the industry, you're going to have to work your way up, because if you're just now starting, obviously if companies are looking for seasoned UX researchers, they're not going to look your way. But if you can work your way through, and I think that's why I preach visual UI design, because you can combine that skill with visual UI design. Visual UI design is a hard skill that sells itself. So if I see a portfolio, if I see a strong portfolio, let's go to Dribble, share my screen. So if I see a portfolio like this, move this out of the way. These are hard skills that sells themselves. So when you have a portfolio of visuals, this sells itself, and then someone gets you on the phone, and now you're talking about your experience in human computer interaction. You're golden. So that's why we all have to learn visual UI design. So if any of you out there not learning visual UI design, it's an essential skill. I think it's an essential skill, even if you don't feel like, hey, I don't want to go, I want to do more of the UX research side. I think you need to learn visual UI design so you can have projects on your portfolio, and then you can build out case studies talking through the UX process of those things. I think the more projects you show and the effort you put into your portfolio is up to you. And the more you do that, the better you look. As your portfolio grows, your value grows. So Andre says, Figma is awesome. Randy says, love Figma. So my next course that I'm going to be coming out with is going to be done on Figma, because everybody uses Figma. And also in my last course that I built in 2018, it was done with Sketch, and obviously it only pertained to folks that are on Mac. But it's going to be visual design, problem solving, critical thinking, and communication. Like, that's going to be the core. But the heavy load on this course is going to be teaching visual UI design. How do I think through visual UI design? How to get better as a visual UI designer, pixel perfect visual design, how to mimic other sites, how to think through designs and components when you're building out new things. You're building out a button, a drop-down menu, login screen, calendar, whatever. How to actually go through that and improve your visual UI design skills. I think that's essential for every designer. It really is going to be for folks who are new to UX design and really want to get in, because I'm going to be teaching the core. Not really more advanced stuff, but just for folks who are getting into UX. I finished a boot camp for UX in March, but fell off really hard focusing on my full-time job with COVID. Any advice on getting back into things and finishing my further? Great question. Just naturally get back. Everybody goes through ups and downs. I've gone through highs and lows in terms of just being posting content on YouTube, and some days I have like a stretch of 3 or 4 days where I'm posting, I'm really hot. And this is just an example. This is unrelated to UX design, but I'm really active in all my social media posting, and then that's called momentum, right? So basically, you lost momentum if you were heavily into UX, and then you lost momentum and left and worked and focused on your job through the COVID. You basically lost momentum, and that's what we all go through. And now it just takes, you just have to, once you realize that, and don't beat yourself up over it, once you get back into it slowly and just with the consistency over the next several days, over the next several weeks, give yourself a couple of weeks of consistency each and every day, a little bit every single day, and then the momentum will start spinning, and it'll just be like a natural gravitation towards, being in that flow of UX. So, your situation is you just lost momentum, and there's naturally no quick way to build back momentum other than being consistent, taking action. So when every time I lose momentum in anything, whether it's like posting videos or working on a project or doing anything, it's all about taking action. Action is the recipe for getting into the flow again and building back momentum. Always, always. A lot of times, as just human nature is, we get into this thing of overthinking. What should I do now? Should I do it that way? Should I do it? I think just taking any type of action is is beneficial for anybody that wants to get back into the flow and build momentum. Caleb said, I have a question. When it comes to made up projects, right, like concept work, and do most companies care, or do they want to see complexity? I only have one real project with a startup. Yes, companies. So here's a general rule. Companies really want to know your experience and what, so if you have 3 or 4 or 5 years of experience at 5 other companies, they want to know your experience. They like that because experience is what they look for to bring you on. If you only have one project, but if you have, let's say, 10 concept projects, that's basically, there's no right and wrong about that. That's all you can do because you've only have one project at one company. But those other side projects is still beneficial, right? But if you have 10 projects and you worked at 10 companies, every company is going to want to know what you did at those 10 companies, if that makes any sense. They want to know, like if I worked at ADP and Fox and Yahoo and this company, and I have 4 other personal projects, they don't really care, but they want to know what I did at ADP. What my experience was at Yahoo, what my experience was at Fox, what my experience was here, so they will take real experience over concept work every day of the week. But I like to always push personal project concept work because it's an extra added bonus. There's no right and wrong about that. There's no, it can only benefit you. The more projects you have out there, and then if your side projects are so legit and so amazing, then it can obviously blow away some of your real work. But the reason why these companies want to look at real work is because of those 4 things that I mentioned. Visual design, problem solve, critical thinking, and communicating, like working with a team environment to actually push projects out. If you have experience doing that, they want to know that, and they like that because that's what you're going to be doing for them. And so they want to get that experience in there. They don't care if you spent, you worked the weekends working on your own personal project. That's great because that showcases your thought process and your visual UI design skills and your ability to design. But these other projects are more important to them just based on the experience standpoint. But never stopped doing personal projects. I've been doing design for 20 plus years, and I still favor personal projects because you can do more and more and more and more of it. A lot of times the stuff that we work on at these companies aren't even great. They don't even look good. I'm embarrassed to show 95% of the work that I've done in all my career in okay, let me say this. I've been designing for 20 years. 90% of the projects that I've done at these companies, and they paid me good money, I'm embarrassed to show. That's just the truth. Because a lot of times we work with these companies and we don't have control over the work that we do. A lot of times it's the stakeholders that's saying, you know, we should go in this direction or this direction and this direction. It's rare that we actually have full control over every little pixel, every little placement. You know, that only comes in our personal projects. So many times, what I've had to do is when I would leave a company, I would have to redesign the work that I did there to make it my own, quote unquote. And so that's what I do. But yeah, a lot of times, a lot of the projects that we work at, it's amazing. If you ever go to Dribble, and you see a project like this, hypothetically, right? I would do this often. So I would look at a project, and you could say, this person will say, you know what, we redesigned this thing for this particular culture filter, whatever this company is, right? And I would go to that website, and they would have some ugly looking site there. So obviously the designer and the company kind of, you know, didn't. It's rare that I see an amazing design like this. It's rare that I see an amazing design like this and see it completely accurate on the official website. I don't know. That's just me. Run this process and let me know what you guys see. Because look at Robin, new designs for Robin's website. I don't even know what Robin is, but another landing page, office space management. All right, let's do this. Let's look at Robin. Let me see, Robin, space management software. Let me see. So does this site look like this? Maybe it does. See, there's one similar. So here's the site that they did. This actually looks good. So this is one that actually looks really good. So I'm 0 for 1. I struck out today. but a lot of times, so this is one of my favorite designers, Julian here. I'm not ragging on Julian. Julian's like one of the top designers in the world. So I was looking at one of his sites, and I was going through one of his sites here in a project, and I clicked on something, and I was like, dang, that's a really cool design. I forgot which one it was. It was a really cool design, and so I went and I wanted to see the actual site in real life. And when I went there, and I'm like, oh man, they didn't even use his designs, you know. And it looked like he spent a lot of time, like months, designing this project. But a lot of times that happens, you know. A lot of times the stuff that you design, these companies change or whatnot. We've all been there. Let's see. Okay, I answered this question already. Let's see. There's a other aspect to it. A lot of people emphasize the terminology and context more. I'm still confused on this part. I think you're talking about, yeah. So hit me up. Do me a favor. Go to my site, ML UX Academy. Use the contact page. Send me a message. And if you're interested in doing one-on-one session, we can do that. But I think what you're getting at is you're getting about, I talk about visual UI design. So there's two things that you guys got to keep in mind when I talk about visual UI design. There's still an entire industry of UXers that may not agree with me on the surface. Okay, what I'm getting at is the truth, meaning there's still a UX culture that's upholding UX design, which is totally fine, which I don't mind that. I actually like that to be the case. But the reality of these situations is a lot of these times companies, all tech companies are ran on their product development. You know, the as good as their product development is. So when you get to a company, a lot of times you're just having to push out projects and push out features and things like that. And you don't have time to go through a full quote unquote UX design process. So you're not going to go through the things that they normally want to test you on, like in an interview, like your thought process, your wireframes and all this stuff, and I like to use the phrase sticky notes, like this whole like sitting in a boardroom, like spending weeks and days figuring out the problem. No, a lot of times you're cranking out stuff. You're cranking out stuff. And that's the reality. And that's why I say the visual design comes twofold. One is just the reality, but also it's more for like you getting in the door. It's you for standing out from a designer. A lot of companies and UXers are still going to want to know if you know the lingo, if you know the terminology and things like that. But I still approach things from a common sense perspective. When it comes to terminology and stuff like that, I just talk about problem solving. I use these big terms like problem solving and critical thinking, because that's essentially the bulk. That's the generality. That's the general term of what you do when you're trying to figure out, users like pain points and things like that. But there's a lot of terminology in UX that might be there on the surface, like in an interviews, but you won't use it daily. Somebody might ask you questions about empathy, but these are things that you learn over time, but you realize user empathy, what do you mean by that? Like, you mean just caring about the end user, about the problems they're going through or the actions that they want to take and the problems the things that they want to do on this particular site, or what they, or what their assumptions are. There's a lot of things that, long story short, we can talk about that for hours, but hit me up. Can we get a remote job without any experience as a UX designer? No. You need experience as a UX designer. You need a portfolio. You need a portfolio for a remote job and or an in-house job. Any remote job is just as equally as important, and the same amount of skills and the same amount of things. You're just working remotely through Zoom and things like that. What's up, Malik? Doing well, buddy. Do you think learning program like Figment and Sketch is more valuable than doing a full bootcamp? Yes. Here's a question. If you're just here's a topic. If you're just now getting into UI UX, you're just now getting into learning about UX, and you're thinking about taking a bootcamp, I always say start on YouTube. Download the tool like Figma, download a tool like Sketch, and start playing around with it. Also, I say even go a little further. Give yourself the exercise of, after you learn the basics, the foundational things of one of these tools, just start playing around with trying to copy and trying to build out one interface that you find on Dribble. So take something like this. I don't know if they have individual pages. Take something like this and try to mimic that. Give yourself the task of trying to mimic an app like that, and that will open up a lot of questions for you when you're designing these tools, and then you'll get to a point to where you're stumped. You'll get far, you'll get weeks ahead, and you'll be trying things. Some questions will be answered on Google. Some questions will be answered by me. Some questions will be answered by other designers and other videos and things like that you find out there. And then at some point, you're going to get stumped, and you're going to be trying, and you're going to show people screens and all that stuff, and you're going to be like, I need to take a course. I need to take a course to get more of a structure, more process on how to take what I know, this nice little foundational base, to become a little bit more professional. And that's the process that I think for anybody. Even if I was trying to learn the guitar, I should just go and get a guitar and just play and just practice on learning stuff over YouTube. And but I got to a point, or even for business, right? I get to a point to where, like, for example, I actually want to get a coach. I'm going to be looking for a professional coach that deals with like planning and structure, because that's a weak point in my personal career, is like planning, structure, focus and discipline and stuff like that. And I was thinking about that today. Like, I want to get to a point, even after I watch enough videos and I know the principles, I want to get a coach that can really give me a methodology that I can work with. You know, like, I'm going to look for a good coach that can actually talk through me, like what they did for other clients, that what worked for them, and how they achieved certain things by doing things in a structured way. Long story short is, everyone should nibble, whatever, play around on YouTube to a certain point, and then you're like, hey, I need a structured advice on this from a professional, where I can take me from here to another level. Mike, have your courses and lost a job due to COVID. Using skills to build wife's candle and soap business. Okay. I'll look for working for someone is more of a stretch than building a business for ourselves. So you're taking the route of you lost your job due to COVID. You're building out, you're leveraging your skills to build out, your wife's business. And I think that's amazing. I think you do that, but I don't think you give up. If you lost your job, don't give up on the game. Don't give up on the game and go. And everyone needs an island, I think. So right now you're swimming in the ocean, right? If somebody's going out, they lost their job and they're swimming in the ocean, and they're going to just start a small business. It's 100% difficult to go full-fledged into running a small business and just doing that completely, right? There's a lot of stresses, right? A lot of times you're not really fully profitable in that first year. So I think continue to do that, continue to build out your wife's business, continue to put all that energy in that, but don't give your energy away in terms of applying for jobs. Always apply for jobs and continue to chip away at your portfolio. As you continue to clean up your portfolio, dust your portfolio off. If you had a job, obviously everyone who has a job, our portfolios get dusty. You just kind of dust it off a little bit, clean it up a little bit. As you work on your wife's things, continue to apply. Get that island. I say everybody needs an island, i.e. a job, right? So when you get that island, now you can breathe a little bit, continue to grind on your business, your wife's business, and do it that way. That's my advice. Don't completely give up on getting the job, but don't give up on, don't do one or the other. Do both. Few questions here by Nur. She goes, companies say they want your design. Okay, yep, I'll answer that one. Yeah, so you responded to, it gets very demotivating. So, yes, it does. It's the reality of the business. You just gotta, it's the reality of business, and you just have to realize that. that a lot of the jobs that we get out there, we like this business because we can be creative, we can build stuff, and we want to like we envision ourselves, excuse me, designing and building apps, seeing them being used by users, and us feeling good about it, like talking with our friends about, yeah, I took part in building that particular app, this app that people are actually using, and that's pretty cool. And but the reality is that's pretty rare. Um, a lot of times you might be working for a company B2B, and nobody will ever see the light of day on the apps and things that you work on, right? A lot of times you won't even go through a really cool process when you design these apps, and they come out ugly, and the company is only about, focused on making money. That's the reality. The reality is there's thousands of companies out there. There's thousands of companies, and guess what? We have the right to jump from company to company if one isn't, quote unquote, you know, um, right for our needs and what we feel is right. So keep looking. Don't get motivated. Don't get demotivated. Don't. I mean, it is demotivating, but don't get discouraged. Keep grinding. Build up your portfolio, and eventually you're going to land a job where the culture and the team that you're going to be working with is right on, and you're going to love it. And things like that. That happened to me when I worked for Yahoo. Um, we had a 7-person team. We would go to lunch, eat Indian food all the time on Fridays, and it was like our thing. Our boss, our director there, he loved, it was like a team thing. We would go to get Indian food. We would hang out for a couple hours, come back. It was the best. The culture and the team nucleus was dope. It was the best that I thought. Thoughts on XD? Um, XD is nice, but it lacks in features for power users. That's the only problem I have with XD. XD is growing, but it lacks on features for power users like myself. Power users tend to stick with a handful of tools. Um, and we do, like, if I work in Figma or if I work in Sketch is my power tool. It's even more fully featured than Sketch, I mean, than Figma. A power user like myself get familiar with a handful of things that allows us to build things quickly. If I am using Adobe Xd, they lack in some of these things that it doesn't allow me to move as quickly as I can. So that's when I say it's not fully featured for like power users, because it's still adding features and things like that. But most companies don't invest in research. Yes, a lot of them don't. It's still a new thing. It's still a new thing. So we're touching on a point here. This is why I say visual UI design is important. If you've built your career and loved UX design so much, but realize that companies aren't even investing, when you get into the nook and cranny of things, like companies aren't really investing, so that was my reality. That is why I kind of dumbed it down and said, instead of teaching real UX, like a real UX process of where we're going through this vetting process with sticky notes and wireframes and usability studies and things like that, I brought it down to more of a common sense approach. Visual design, common sense, critical think through your problems, customer problems, like, how do we do that? It's up in the air. It varies. There's no structured process to do that. There's no structured process to problem solve. You can use these tactics, but I watched a video. This one designer actually explained it pretty good. He said UX design is like a belt, like the Batman's belt. So for any situations, you might pull out this particular weapon and this and that. Think of that as like a UX design, right? In some cases, you might need to speak to the customer. In some cases, you might just need to, watch a video on them using a tool. In some cases, you might need to do a wireframe. In some cases, you might need to do some sticky notes. In some cases, you might need to build out a customer journey, customer journey. In some cases, you might need to identify some user personas more, clearly. It's all, but in every case, those things are needed in every single case. you know, but problem solving in general, and critical thinking through problems, through your designs, is something that's essential each and every day. Hey, Mike, I'll be leaving a small startup, okay, to join a 100-person company as a product designer. Cool. I want to thank you for helping me, and this would, and we'll love to know if you have any tips to adjust well. Same thing. If you're leaving a small startup, obviously you're going to a bigger team. Same thing. Just go in there. If you're joining a team, just know this. If you don't, when you join a team, just be a good team player, and then steadily as you grow, your superpowers can shine, right? Don't go in there right away thinking like, hey, everything is relying on me, because maybe at a smaller team, you're doing a lot of things, you're wearing a lot of many hats, right? You go to a larger team, now they might have more resources, more developers. Maybe you're not doing you're doing less development work and things like that. So make sure that you go in there and you're just being a great team player, and you're going to make your adjustments slowly in the long tail and not initially at the front of this opportunity. You're not going to go in there and needing to do all these things. Go in there being a good team player, produce your screens, do your work, try to, focus on building relationships, good relationships with all the people, the product owners and stuff like that, and other developers and designers, and you'll be good. You're welcome. Ella says, thank you so much. You're cool and wise. Appreciate you. Thank you. How do you get started career-wise post undergrad with a psychology degree, but with a background in it? You just get started. You have a good background. You have a background in computer science. You have a psychology degree. The way you get started is you figure out what you want to do. You want to go into you want to get into product design. You want to get into UX, on the UX side of things, which is where you can leverage more of your psychology background and things like that, and understanding people and getting more into human computer interaction, things like that. Identify where you want to go, what you want to do, what's more enjoyable to you, and start there. The product design side is one thing. UX research side is a little bit different. The product design things is all about designing screens, building out screens, apps, and problem solving, visual design, problem solving, critical thinking. That's pretty much it. And so how do you start? You start, on your own. You start by learning a tool like Figma or Sketch, Adobe Xd, and you start by watching some tutorials on YouTube. The very first thing that the two first things for anybody just not getting started in this industry, this is what I recommend. Getting the tool and just the first week, learning about the 10 things that you can do with this tool. Text, shapes, artboards, etc. Okay? There's about 10 things, 10 essential things. Just try to focus on 10, no more than that. With those 10 things, 10 basic things in any of these tools, Sketch, Figma, or Adobe Xd, give yourself the task of designing an interface. Go to any site. It can be YouTube. It can be Twitter, your favorite app. Just pull up one of your favorite apps on your phone that you visit all the time, every single day. Take a screenshot of that app. This is what I say. Take a screenshot of an app that you use every day on your phone, email it to yourself, or airdrop it to yourself, however you do it, and open it up in this tool and try to copy it. That's the first step in getting into product design, UX design, in my opinion, because the important thing is being able to build out screens, and then being able to problem solve and talk through those screens. And then eventually you're going to be able to figure out a problem that you want to solve and some solutions that you want to design for, and then you're going to be designing those out. Long story short, that's basically what product design is. Appreciate you, Franklin, for the super chat. Yo, Mike, I'm a freelance web developer. How can I start running ad companies for people? I can produce all the design assets and types of clients. How can I do my first project? In good faith, when I haven't produced results for people. Running ad campaigns for people. This is a good one. There's a guy that I follow, and he helps people out with building. If you are still on this live session and you actually, his name is June. What's his name? June Pang June. Follow this guy June Pang or Pang June. This guy is legit when it comes to like ads and all this stuff and running campaigns. He's legit. He's also on Instagram. So follow him on Instagram, and he has a basically he has a video on one of his Instagram. This guy has 1 million followers, by the way. He's a entrepreneur, motivator. He sells courses and things like that, and he has a video on here where he talks about what if I'm not an expert, results versus reporting. Yeah, this is a great. This one here, this is great. He says, what if you're not an expert? I like this video where he talks about experts can show results, but if you're not an expert, what you can do is report. And watch this video. It's a 6-minute video. If you're still watching, if you're still on my live stream, watch this video here, and he answers it greatly for anybody that lacks experience, but you're still trying to gain business, but you don't have any testimonials per se. And that video that I just showed you there is a great. He goes through a really good process when he shows you exactly the two types of people. One that can show testimonials, the other that can do something else. I forgot exactly what he explained, but he's a really good teacher too. A few more questions. Will says, when you reference UX process, do you mean agile and its varying forms or waterfall? No, UX process is its own process. Like agile and waterfall is more of the development process, but UX process is more of a when I say UX process, a lot of times a real UXer, when they get something, a task from product owners that we need to build out this particular screen, right? We need the client is asking for these features. The client's hypothetically, the client is asking for a calendar feature that allows them to do X, Y, and Z, right? A UX director will say, well, we need the chance to speak with these customers because we can't really trust you. We know that these are requirements, but we need to hear it from them on why they need these things. And so, and like learn more about their what problems are they really trying to solve, right? A UXer, a head of UX will say, we have to go through a certain process before we even start designing these screens and get these screens to development. That UX process, which can vary from organization and organization or UX designer to UX designer, is a steps of really vetting the user before we design screens. In an organization, a lot of times they're like, hey, we don't have time to speak with customers. Well, we do, but we have to get this out next week, or we have to get this out within a few weeks. We don't have time to spend weeks and weeks to fly down or bring customers in and do some usability tests and things like that. We don't have that time. We only have 3 weeks to get these to the developers and get them started encoding this stuff. Now, what do? You have to you have to like do your best guess, put forth some designs, and X out the actual UX process. That's what I mean when it comes to companies not doing the UX process the right way, and that happens a lot. Most companies, I'll do a quick round. Let me see. I'll go through these. Most companies' job listings are messed up. Yep. They say yep. Most companies' job listings and job descriptions are messed up. Just, yeah, they're not accurate and things like that. You just got to go through and hold true to what you know as a designer, and that's it. Don't worry about JavaScript. If somebody asks you in an interview that, hey, you need to know all this stuff, say, hey, I'm designers, I'm here to design and things like that. Design a visual language. I started out as a graphic designer and I have my own career. And okay, design is a valuable skill, definitely. There says, what is the balance between solving a UX business problem, collecting leads, payments, versus having a modern layout? I get affected when people stress on layout and look and feel more than the architecture. So visual UI design, when it comes to visual UI design, there's a couple of reasons why I focus on visual UI design, because it's important to landing the job. Now, when you land the job and you're working on a landing page and your boss is talking about pretty looks and stuff like that, and they're not focusing on conversions, that's another discussion, right? That's just opinion, right? It's very subjective on what the boss, that's just natural. Some bosses will want to have a certain look and feel and things like that. But then you may say, hey, I'm more focused on conversions. Those are all subjective, but both important to, for other reasons, right? The boss might want the certain look and feel to be more cutting edge, but also wants the conversions, right? For business purposes. You're right. Leads, conversions, and all this stuff is way more important than visuals, right? But the visuals are important for you to land a job, in my opinion. That's the goal. Again, if you design crappy screens, but you're going around and saying, hey, I'm able to get customers high conversions, but all your screens are, don't look that great. But I come around and say, look at my screens. My screens are amazing. They look like the latest cutting edge stuff you see on Dribbble, and I can get you high conversions. Who's better, right? They're obviously going to go with the person that has good visual design skills and a good understanding of, conversion, optimization and stuff like that, right? So it's a both, but you're absolutely right. One versus the other, design is not more important than conversions. And you are gonna go through. It's just you're gonna go through stakeholders that have that. A few more questions. Any advice on how to share projects when signing NDA? Have you ever worked and you wanted to share but couldn't? Yeah, when you work at a place and you can't show their work. The way I do it is, there's a couple of ways I did it. I worked when I first got my job at ADP, and we were doing all these enterprise software screens like calendars and contact stuff, and I couldn't show it because I worked there. What I did was I did the same stuff, but I built a side project that was totally unrelated to the ADP's business, but utilized a lot of the things that I learned at that business. So essentially, you're taking exactly what you learn day to day, even some of the similar screens, but you're building it. Like I took a calendar app and I made a real estate business app out of it. Okay, but it was the same stuff that I did at ADP, but I just did it as a side project for something else. So that's how you get around those non-disclosure agreements. You take the same stuff you do there, but just put a twist on it, do a totally different industry. Do you have any tips on how to be better storyteller with your designs? That's a great question. I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know how to be a good storyteller with my designs. Um, I think when it comes to designs, I don't try too hard to explain things. I mean, because designs are subjective. I don't think even if you're a great storyteller, a lot of people are great at trying to explain their designs to the point to where they really have to validate their designs. I don't do it that way because a design can be subjective. If I like this look and feel for certain reasons, right? I like this look and feel. There was a design that I had because I wanted things to be very simplified, so I used certain buttons and things like that, and certain like rounded corners and like fonts with like rounded edges and things like that. Because I want it to be more friendly, more fun. And so you just explain things that way. But at the same time, there's no right and wrong if somebody chooses a different design, because who knows what the user wants and what the user assumptions are, things like that. I think it's a matter of just having an opinion for your approach, and then, pitching it, and then being open to what other people have to say, and knowing that, hey, there's no right and wrong, but this is just how I feel. A good example is if you looked at so if you look at Waze, right? Waze is one of my most I like Waze for some reason, because so you have Waze and then you have, Apple or Google Maps, right? So you have two different types of apps. Waze is more cartoony, more fun, very fluffy looking, if you will, from a philosophical standpoint. Like, it's just very fluffy, right? Whereas Google Maps and Apple Maps, I don't know if that's if Apple Maps is the right name for it, but they're just more, I guess, serious looking. And there's no right and wrong on either, but a lot of times I'll take the approach, if I'm designing an app, and let's say I take the approach where I want something to have this feel for it. This particular feel is, I don't know, just very consumer, fun, friendly, fluffy. And I don't know why, psychologically, why that is, why they chose to go this route, but that's what I get between Waze and using Google Maps. And a lot of times, if I want something to be more fun and less serious, I would go with something that looks like Waze, and that's how I would explain it. Where something is more serious, you go with something that's a little bit more like, Google Material Design and things like that. When is that coming out? Do you plan on doing any courses on AR and VR? No. I'm going to be working on my course. It should be coming out. I'll probably get it out in the next month or two. Mike, what is your process like? Developer handoff. You know what? My thing about my developer handoff, it can be different. One place I just provided screens to them. Like one at ADP, at the end of my tenure at ADP, we worked with Envision. So I just hand them, prototypes through Envision, and they had Envision Inspect. But also, most recently, we use Zeppelin. So we upload our screens to Zeppelin, and obviously developers have access to Zeppelin. And these are all just inspect tools where, when you're working in a development process, developers work on stories, user stories, right? So anytime they're going to start developing, the screens and everything has to be signed off through the stakeholders and the customers and all that stuff. And then we just basically attach Zeppelin links or, Envision links to these stories, and maybe with a screenshot of these screens. At that point, the developers have everything that they need. They have the inspection tool in Zeppelin, and then you just work with them on their process. So a lot of times when they're in the process of developing stuff, they ping you for things. So every developer is different, but essentially it's a matter of you having the screens ready in Figma, Sketch, or Adobe Xd, and you're ready to post them to either InVision or Zeppelin or something like that. And that, to me, is like the most recent process for handing off stuff to developers. He says, yep, stakeholders just direct everything and you just put stuff in places. That's exactly it. Directors will say, or stakeholders, can you please do that? Can you please do this? And we just, you know what? At the end of the day, they don't want a UX process. Just do it. Eric says, hey, Mike, I'm a UI designer, but I want to become a product designer. Okay, better pay. Yep, okay. What is the best way to transition? Should I show UX problem solving? Yes. Basically, if you're doing more UI design work right now, you're just basically you see other positions out there where UX positions or product designer positions, and the only difference from what you do and what they're looking for is you just want to basically document your process. So you want to just design screens or the project you have on your portfolio. You just want to document them. So you just kind of show, look at other good, you can just do a search for, other good case studies and just talk about, just talk through your designs basically. What problems are you solving for this particular project? What are the solutions you came up with? How did you get there? Did you do some research, some competitive analysis, some storyboarding, some, some wireframes, some competitive analysis, and then you end up coming to this particular solution. Did you show these to customers? Whatever, right? It's all about showing your process in your portfolio. That's the only difference from probably where you are as just being a UI designer to a full-on product designer. And then you'll get better at understanding. Watch a lot of my videos when it comes to like the problem solving stuff that I talk through, and the critical thinking, and the importance of communication, because that's essentially, you have the visual UI design skills. You're just going to have to get better at talking through those things when you get to interviews, right? Just talking through the concepts of problem solving, critical thinking, which you already do as a designer, and then the importance of communication. That, in my opinion, makes up a well-rounded product designer. So for you, it's just a matter of building out your portfolio and documenting your process. And with your help, so my course teaches. See, my course is not for somebody that actually knows a good foundation on UI design. It's for somebody who's just beginning and doesn't have a way and understanding on how to design. That's what my course is for. But you're looking for you're more on the problem solving side. My new course that I'm going to be coming out with is going to be touching more on those core essentials, the visual design, but obviously somebody who knows UI design doesn't need that, but it's the problem solving. Like I talk about using this problem solving process as you're breaking down, like customers' problems and their pain points and things like that. That's going to be really explained thoroughly. Critical thinking is pretty easy, but communication. But the point is, you just have to get well-rounded on the other aspects of a product designer. Essentially, the three: problem solving, critical thinking, and communication. If you just start focusing more on those, start understanding those more, and start speaking to those more intelligently, that's going to go well for you in interviews, and get you to that product designer role. What's up, man? Thanks for the shout out. A lot of questions today. A lot of people on here. This is dope. All right. Let me answer it. Let me see a few. They do this more often. We got a lot of people on here today. What's the best way to get a UX job in Toronto? Man, work on your portfolio. Work on your portfolio. Work on your portfolio. Apply, apply, apply. How do I get motivated? Good question. You got to stay. You got to understand what you take in every single day. Be aware. Don't take in garbage. Just take in good positive stuff for the next 7 days, and then momentum will build on that. That's how you get motivated. Kevin says, I went to a boot camp and have yet to use anything that was taught in the program. I visually just because what got me my first job. Exactly. That's funny. That is funny. Kevin, you said it. You know what's interesting about this is I actually saw a curriculum at a boot camp, and I was like, there was like nothing in the curriculum that I do on a daily basis. So what you just explained, Kevin, is absolutely right. You went to a boot camp and you have yet to use any of the things that was taught to you. I took a workshop called Lean UX Workshop. I was actually at ADP. They flew us out to Atlanta, and we took a workshop by the author of the book Lean UX. We were doing all these paper cutouts, this concept stuff. We even went to the mall to do like guerrilla marketing or guerrilla testing per se, to like talk to people about this sunglass app that we were going to do. We went through this Lean UX process, and then we said hi and bye. It was like a 2-day event. Hi and bye. It was great to say we went to this workshop. Have yet to do any of that stuff in real life. Never did any paper cutouts, never tested with users at the mall, never done any of that stuff. Never did any concept work like within a matter of like an hour and just do it really quick. No. Do you find on average when making your wireframes for companies, do you make wireframes for each milestone, or do you make final design or products and dev work to get to that point? For each milestone, or do you make the final design and end product and does work to get to that point? Yeah, so when it comes to screens, a lot of times when you build out a collection of screens and things like that, development will, when they get to a point of building out your screens per se, the framework and the structure will be in place. And at this point, it's really about small features and things like that. So there's no more wireframes at this point. Like if you're adding a button to a screen, developers just need to know the visuals for that screen. If there's a modal dialogue that pops up, they're just building on those things. So you're just basically working in high fidelity designs at that point. Yep. I recently watched your video about UX resumes. You mentioned that people should hire a resume writer. Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely going to look into that since I'm sure my resume needs work. Yeah, definitely go through a resume writer. There's a lot of good ones, I'm sure, on Fiverr. They range from 25. I don't know if you can get them for $5, but it's like $25. You can, $50. You can get a good writer. But I would look at their examples, look at their reviews, and find a good resume writer. I suck at writing. Should I outsource my content writing for my own portfolio? Yes, that's a great question. That is a great question. So for all of us, our portfolios, I suck at writing. And this is a great question. It is probably great for you to have, let's say you set up your page, you have 3 or 4 pages in your portfolio, your about page, your home page. it'll be great to send that to a writer. Go on Fiverr.com, look for a writer that you can spend, 25, $50. Have them rewrite your stuff because writing is a skill. I definitely don't have that skill in terms of being a good copywriter, and outsourcing that would be great. A lot of times, I haven't done that. I think I should do that for my projects, and because I just think I just look at what other people are saying and I try to write it, but I know my lingo is way off, and so I think for your portfolios though, it'd be beneficial to kind of go through a writer and just get their feel because there are some people who are smart and would love to do that, love to look over your stuff. They write every day. They would love to, be of service to you, and you pay whatever their amount is, 20, 25, $50, and they copyright and do all your stuff for you. Definitely a great question. At my UX position, there's a design system in place. Yep, our day-to-day is pretty much enforcing design system for each feature we design. We did whiteboard with POs when we were in the office. Yeah, so at ADP, it's similar. My process at ADP was very similar. Um, there was so I was with ADP for 5 years. We really did no visual UI design. Very rarely. I mean, because we had a design system in place. The designs, but the visual, but working at a company where there's lack of visual design effort on your part can get you in trouble because now what happens is you're working at a company, and now when you start trying to go out there and get new jobs, your portfolio looks stale. Your visual UI design skills looks behind. It's important to always keep that visual UI design skills up, even if the company is not, doing quote unquote new visual UI design work every single day. Because a lot of companies will have a design system and then you just build off of that. But it's the importance of understanding visual UI design. But you're absolutely right. Appreciate Gio. My side businesses are bringing me 50% of my income, and I have passion for my side business more than my job. Definitely, definitely keep going. If your side business is bringing in 50% and you have that's more than your job, then keep going. Thanks for the shout out. Keep going. Is there room for UX designers in higher education? Good question. I don't know. Higher education, like, I don't know exactly the context of that question, but I would assume so. Using Figma right now, just hopped on it. Yep. Shout out to Fireworks. I do not use Adobe Fireworks, unfortunately, but that was a tool that I used for like, heck, probably 10 years. From 2000, Macromedia. It was Macromedia Fireworks, and then around 2004, I believe, Adobe bought them out. Something like that. Then it became Adobe Fireworks. And I used it from 2004, 2005 to about 2012, 2013. So think about that. Yeah, it was a long time. I used it probably over 10 years. I used Adobe Fireworks over 10 years, and I loved that program. And to be honest with you, Sketch is the closest thing to Adobe Fireworks, and that's why I remain heavily on Sketch. I like, I'm big on when it comes to like cropping bitmaps and things like that because when I'm working in my workflow, in my day-to-day workflow, when I'm designing apps and things like that, a lot of times I'm taking screenshots and I'm cropping out things. And, um, you know, Fireworks was very heavy on both bitmap and vector-based capabilities. Um, and Sketch is the closest thing to that. So I think a lot of people who worked on Fireworks left and worked on Sketch. In my opinion, I think I've heard this at some point. But no, I don't use Fireworks anymore. But I love that tool, and it did a lot for me. Did a lot for my career. I used that tool heavily for probably a decade. So I always love Fireworks. Hey, game design student here. Yep. UX is fundamental part of building gameplay and varies greatly based on project type. Do you have any broad principle strategies in assessing UX effectiveness? No, great question, but I don't have any principles and strategies really, other than studying how users game. UX. That's one of the things that I probably wanted to get into was UX when it comes to games and stuff like that. But the strategies and things that I would take for designing good UX in games is just studying. Watching yourself use games, watching how other people use games, seeing where things might be able to be improved. There's a lot of standards that we get accustomed to over the decades and of playing games, and what we expect the UX to look like on screen, and you can just learn from other games and learn from games and just pick and choose, and like, wait, this game does this UX a little bit better, and you just apply. So it's all about the principles when it comes to, if you're getting into gaming and UX and things like that, it's really just being a student of the game, no pun intended, but just going out there and just naturally knowing like this game's user experience is great. What are some things about this particular game's experience that I like? Bring that into this particular game. How can I improve this game user experience, versus this game? You know what I mean? And you just bring in things and you just do a mishmash of things. You just do a collective, like, you just be a student of the game. You just start pinpointing things, and then as you grow with experience, if you're in the UX side of things in the gaming industry, you're going to be pulling things in from various places. Gaming is a little bit more interesting than web. There's more standards in web, and so some of the standards are very simplified and things like that. But in gaming, it's a little bit more abstract. It's a little more more things that's going on within gaming, but that's something that I definitely wanted to get into. I won't get into it now. I don't have the time and the energy to focus in that area, but that's always been an interesting thing to me, the UX in terms of game in the gaming side of things. So it's definitely a big industry that I love, and I think would be cool if people to get into that side of it if you're not in it already. Hey Mike, don't think it would be difficult for someone who's older getting in a started industry. As you know, ageism is a real thing. Yep. So for those of us, if you're older, obviously, ageism, people can discriminate. It's human nature, right? So they can discriminate. Age can be a disadvantage when it comes to salary, because you might want more pay because you haven't, you're at a different level in your career than somebody that's right out of college, right? So that can be a disadvantage. Your portfolio, your stubbornness, your ability to focus on design and things like that whereas somebody coming in from the ground up is more adaptive to the latest cutting edge things, right? As we're older, we kind of like are more stubborn. We're used to our things that we're comfortable with. So we're not that drawn to the latest cutting edge designs and things like that, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes on. But if you look at the market, become a student of the industry, of apps, of design, and you start designing in that fashion and speaking the same language, then the market will be receptive of that. But age is just a natural thing. As we get older, we don't like doing certain things. My daughter's on TikTok, and my son navigates in the phones through YouTube and through TikTok a certain way. My daughters do too. I do it differently. I'm older, right? I stick to more like older stuff. Like, I don't know. So I do things differently. But if I actually wanted to stay in the game and focus on, apps and things like that that pertains to kids and younger generations, then I have to become a student of that game, regardless of my age. If I become a student of the game and I watch and I stay in that realm in terms of design and interaction and UX and things like that, then I can continue to put out products for regardless of my age, and companies will be receptive of that. But if we're stubborn, we don't become student of these things, we don't stay focused on the cutting edge trends, things like that, now we lost. And so that's when ageism comes into play, and they're like, yeah, you're a great person, but I'm going for somebody that's more in tune with the culture or whatever. And so that's a real thing, and we just got to get in tune. No matter our age, we just got to get in tune with the industries, with the standards, the lingo, um, and stuff like that. I don't speak German. My mom do. My mom does. My mom is German. Yeah, it'd be difficult for somebody. My mom speaks German and Spanish, by the way. As an interactive front-end design student, do you suggest a design agency or freelance, or both? Both. You're very welcome. Appreciate the questions. I'm glad that I was able to answer some of those. Yeah, so the guy name that I was showing earlier, his name is uh, Peng Jun. Peng Jun. Follow him um, on Instagram. He talks a lot about. He's an entrepreneur. He talks a lot about just like building your brand, selling courses, designing agency. He's really smart in that aspect, and he built a really cool brand. He knows a lot. He's like a genius when it comes to all that online. Selling your digital products and selling yourself and things like that. He's a genius when it comes to that, and he's really good. He puts out some really good content. What's a non-negotiable skill to have? Jennifer asks, what's a non-negotiable skill to have to be taken seriously as an entry-level designer? I would just say two, like visual design, and just your ability to explain problem solving. Those are two good skills I think you can take to the bank, to be taken serious. If you can design just basic design, really good clean screens, and you can discuss the importance of problem solving, you're golden. STAR method for storytelling: situation, task, ask, result. That's interesting. I want to learn more about that. I don't really get too much into storytelling, but I like where you're going with this STAR method. I'm going to look that up. Check out the STAR method for when you're start of storytelling. When working on a real life project, do you design for just one screen size? Good question. No, 3 screen sizes. We make sure that we design, when we start designing screens, we obviously design for 3. We just design for the different breakpoints for desktop. Desktop, obviously, I choose either you're gonna have a max width on the desktop, or it's gonna be full width. But at some point, it's gonna get to a point to where you have a max width. So desktop is 1, and then tablet and mobile for responsiveness. So those are the 3 screens that we design for. A lot of people on today. Appreciate all these questions. Mike, thanks to you, I've gone from UI designer to senior visual designer and UX engineer in a handful of years. Your nuggets work. A million thanks for changing my life. I appreciate that shout out, Paulino. I appreciate that. Really nice of you to say that. I love when people share their nuggets on anything, on how any of my nuggets or content have they benefited from. I really appreciate you mentioning that. Thank you, Mike, for the inspiration. Your videos helped me a lot in my career. I appreciate the shout out. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. Yeah, so I responded. Jamar was asking the guy's name, Peng Jun. Check him out. He's pretty cool. I appreciate it, Eric. Shout out to 100K. Gio Perez, thanks for the super chat. I need to do this more often. I need to focus. If you do a super chat, I need to like bring up your questions, be more priority. Yo, Mike, you just want to say thank you for all you've done over the years. Your motivational videos, of course, has helped me a lot in the federal job months ago. Thanks again, and God bless you. I appreciate that, Gio. That's really nice of you. I appreciate the shout out, and I'm glad anything that I've done helped you keep succeeding, keep rocking, and lots of good energy your way. I appreciate you. God bless you too, man. Let's see. Let's see. What time is it? I'm going on 2 hours. Okay. Last question. And I appreciate you guys. This is let's see. Mike, I have an interview tomorrow. Okay, let's do this. What do you think I can emphasize on if I don't have too much experience? I have worked 3 mobile apps on my Behance. All right. So if you have an interview tomorrow, go in there with 4 things that you want to focus. 4 things that are important to you as a designer. Your visual, your design, you take that seriously, right? So talk about your passion for doing good visual design work, problem solving, critical thinking, and the importance of communication. Now, these 3, visual design is obviously one, right? You have a passion for designing good work. The other 3, problem solving, critical thinking, is something that touches on problem solving when you're dealing with customers. Check out my videos where I kind of explain these 2, problem solving and critical thinking. This will help you just kind of be seen more as a UX designer, somebody that cares about designing with the users, with users' intentions, right? With users in mind. Because if you skip over the problem solving stuff, you're just a designer. You want to focus on the problem solving and critical thinking. Critical thinking is basically just vetting as you're designing screens, as you're working together with product owners and different stakeholders, you're vetting the screens in terms of, are we doing the right things? We're asking questions along the way. Are we doing the right things? That's critical thinking. The communication part, always throw this in there in your interviews. The importance of communication when you can work with product owners, stakeholders, and developers. The importance of communication is if you have a good relationship with your team, you guys will succeed and put out good products, right? There's always friction in every company. That's why this is so huge when you go into interviews. When you talk about communication, every company has friction from departments to departments, right? With their department heads, not the main employees, but a lot of time with the seasoned professionals, with the directors. Directors are always clashing with other directors because they want to have ownership of this product, and this group want to have ownership. When you can talk about building and the importance of building relationships and communicating with your developers and all that stuff, that's going to go well in your interviews. So always talk about that. Visual, and then I always say this, when you're talking with other people, you can talk about the importance of, getting things done, your integrity. You care a lot about, you hold, integrity is important to you. And your, one good strength of yours is could be, your ability to get things done, work late, work different hours. If you want to, if the team is moving in this direction and working with this process, You can talk about your integrity. It's important to you to just mesh well with the team. You do whatever it takes to get the job done. You talk about those qualities along with your portfolio. I mean, I can go on for an hour to really explain it, but that's in a nutshell. That's the things that you should focus on when it comes to your interview. All right. Anyway, this was great. I didn't know I was going to go on this long. I was actually, it's 2 hours in. I was actually going to do 1 hour, but we had a lot of questions, and that was awesome. We're going to do this again next week. I'm going to be doing lives every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, Pacific Standard Time. So just write that on your schedule. Every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, LA time. And so I'll try to do an hour, but it looks like I'll probably do an hour and a half. But I'm going to come in every single Tuesday and just, maybe have a topic for a couple of minutes here and there. But mainly it's going to just go through a lot of questions. And a lot of people had a lot of good questions today. And next time, I didn't bring out my whiteboard today, but next time I'll bring out my whiteboard and explain some things as I'm answering those questions. Anyway, guys, I appreciate everybody for watching, everybody for supporting, all the thumbs up, all the views. And hopefully you gained a nugget or two from this. And thanks for hanging out with me for a couple hours. And thanks for the support. All right. Have any questions, leave me a comment on this video as it goes live, or you can go to MLUX Academy. And always, I encourage anyone to always send me messages, personal messages. Go to my site, MLUX Academy, click on contact, send me a message. It comes to my phone. I get it right away on my phone. I don't have a big team or a team at all in that case, where everything comes to me. I read them. And so if you want to shoot me a personal message, it comes to me. At some point, I'll get huge where, I'm sitting in the beach, smoking cigars, and people are answering my phone for me. But I don't have that life right now. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll talk soon. All right. Appreciate you guys.